Welcome to CaRE2 Cancer Research Link. I am Dr. Folakemi Odedina, professor at University of Florida and one of the center directors for the CaRE2 Health Equity Center. I am also the creator of the Cancer Research Link. The Cancer Research Link was created to share research affecting minority and underserved communities directly with the public. The CaRE2 Center is leading this effort to give you information on scientific discoveries and resources that are relevant to your community. Today, I am here with my fellow directors of the CaRE2 Center, Dr. John Carpten and Dr. Renee Reams. I would like them to introduce themselves to our audience. Dr. Carpten?
Yeah, hi Falaki. My name is John Carpten. I currently serve as chair for the University of Southern California Department for Translational Genomics. I'm also a program leader for translational and clinical sciences within the USC Norris Comprehensive Cancer Center. And I'm also the executive director for the USC Molecular Genomics Core. My background is in cancer research with, of course, a strong emphasis in cancer genomics, functional genomics, cancer disparities research, and precision oncology.
Thank you, John. Dr. Reams, can you please introduce yourself to our viewers?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Renee Reams. I'm a professor in the College of Pharmacy at Florida A&M University. I am a prostate cancer health disparities researcher. I use genomics and next generation sequencing to look at cancer health disparities, mainly looking for drivers of prostate cancer disparity in Black men, African American men, as well as their ancestrally related West Africans. I am the contact principal investigator for the FAMU CaRE2 Health Equity Center, and I'm happy to be here with you today to talk about our center with my colleagues.
Thank you, John and Ray. And just as a brief introduction about myself, I am also a cancer scientist. I am a prostate cancer behavioral scientist, and I essentially look at prostate cancer in Black men globally to understand the etiology of disparities in prostate cancer and develop ways that we can eliminate prostate cancer globally. So as both of you know, we are sort of in an unusual time, and I would say it's a very timely period for us to launch the CaRE2 Cancer Research YouTube channel. We are dealing with a crisis. The first is the COVID-19 pandemic, and the second one is racism against Blacks as public health crisis. Both of these crises actually affect our minority communities disproportionately. So before we get started with introducing the center, Dr. Reams, I would like you to provide some thoughts on COVID-19 pandemic and how the CaRE2 Center is addressing this crisis.
Certainly. So as of March 2020, effectively every single laboratory across our center was shut down. This is the first in history of having to hibernate our labs and to retreat from our laboratories, in addition to our offices, our classrooms, to our homes. And we have been effectively working from home. As scientists, basic scientists, laboratory scientists, this has had a significant impact, of course, on productivity, and we are just all very much, we're still dealing with it. And of course, safety first. So we of course follow procedures. We're still looking for how to effectively and safely reopen the laboratories. We are not there yet, but we are getting there. In terms of the pandemic itself and how to address it, we have such a wealth of background, both epidemiological, basic sciences, translational sciences, behavioral sciences. So across our center, we have some of our investigators who have been deployed to departments of health on an 8-to-5 duty. We have people who are addressing the pandemic by writing grants, and those by writing position papers, tweeting, And especially this is significant to us because of the finding that Blacks and Hispanics are disproportionately affected by this disease in terms of the number of casualties, not just incidents, but casualties. It appears that there are some, socioeconomic factors as well as genetic factors that are prevalent that make them more prone to being a victim, a casualty of this pandemic.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Reams. Dr. Carpten, can you provide some thoughts on institutional racism against Blacks and how the CaRE2 Center is addressing this crisis?
Yeah, I think we're living in unprecedented times right now. I think, in looking back through history at, a number of sort of societal situations that sort of swarmed around this whole issue of racism and discrimination. What we're experiencing now, I think, rests among the tops of those situations in history. I think, as we look at this situation, it's really clear that when a Black man can be essentially murdered in broad daylight, in front of cameras, in front of witnesses, in front of his own colleagues, with no one there to stop it, and with sort of a callous sense of entitlement that I can do this, and I'm empowered to do this, that, the people have really gotten sick and tired of this. And it was such a staunch example of racism in America. And I think it was mentioned in a tweet from Barack Obama. One of his friends made the statement that, and I paraphrase, that, that image of the policeman with his knee on the neck of a Black man is sort of an image of America, a historical image of America, where white America has had its knee in the neck of Black America, choking the life out of it for centuries. And so this has come to a head at this particular point, and probably for good reason. And I think when I think about this situation, of course, one of the major entities, I think, driving, for social justice is Black Lives Matter and that theme. And I think, we look at Black Lives Matter from the standpoint of, a movement to really begin to affect change on sort of, police brutality and the killing of Blacks. But I also look at it from the standpoint of the keyword lives, meaning as we think about Black lives mattering as we live, I think Black lives matter when it comes to education. Black lives should matter when it comes to employment and opportunity. Black lives should matter, when it comes to the justice and the judicial system. And then finally, of course, I think more pertaining to CaRE2 and our work, Black lives should matter when it comes to healthcare, right, which is another major component of American life. And so as I reflect on this current situation, I really and truly believe that CaRE2 and its sort of overarching and the overarching program that it rests under has a huge responsibility in helping us to achieve health equity, right, which in a way will help us curtail some of these social injustices and some of the racism that we're seeing here in this nation.
Yeah, very well said, Dr. Carpten. And that really captures the mood of America right now, and it captures our mood within the CaRE2 Center. So, the CaRE2 Center really has an important role for our communities as well as other underserved communities as well. Dr. Reams, can you provide a background on the CaRE2 Center and also share with us how the CaRE2 Center is being funded?
Yes. So those were powerful. That was a very powerful statement from John. But I will gather myself and go on. The history is Dr. Odedina and I have been collaborators for a long time, and we've had this interest in, replenishing the pipelines, because at one time or another, we're going to want to retire. So we've always had an interest in training the next generation of African-American scientists, undergraduates, early stage investigators. So one way that we tried to do that prior to winning the award for the U54 was through a mechanism called the P20 grant. So it's a National Cancer Institute P20. So we've had the U54 for 2 years. We did eventually win the P20, and it was a 4-year. It took 3 times to win that grant, and it wasn't for lack of novelty. It wasn't for lack of great ideas. We got great scores. We got no money. In fact, her institution even kicked in almost $500,000 for that 4 years, just because the grant is truly an awesome grant. But in terms of the funds, it wasn't a lot. We still didn't get picked. So I said, Folakemi, this is not for us. Let's not do it. So we went back and forth between cheering each other on. Come on, one more time. So we did it one more time, and we were able to win an NCI coveted NCI P20 planning grant, which is like a pathway. We saw it to the U54. So that was 4 years. It really had 2 components only: training undergraduate research trainees. So there were students from my institution, Florida A&M, an HBCU, Historically Black College and University, that were interviewed and vetted, and that actually went to the University of Florida for the summer for about 10 weeks to engage in hands-on research, laboratory research, behavior research, community outreach, just really the gamut. In addition, there was 2 faculty, one every 2 years, who partner with a UF faculty to move some science along and get the early stage investigator at FAMU some preliminary data so they could move on to a series or a more substantial grant. So that was the basis for us, moving to the P54. But and so now here we are, a triad, not a dyad. And the way Dr. Carpten came in is he was actually our our advisory board leader. So he would come annually and hear our progress and cheer us on, and also say, well, okay, so you need to tighten this up. So when we got ready to go for the U54, we turned to John. He didn't know what was coming, but he had just moved from private industry to just, perfect timing, to USC. So we didn't care if he went to USC, Memphis. We wanted him as our team. And it took a lot of talking, but we talked him into it. I think he probably gets up someone going, what did I do? But anyway, no, it's been a great triad. And so we are the 3 contact PIs, and we have replicas of ourselves. So there's 6 of us who form a MPI, multiple PIs so there's 2 at each institution. So that's how the U54 came to be. And the funny thing is, when we got our first, we had to do our open houses. We would say things like, well, we knew that the P20 that doesn't go into U54, that's just, not a good thing. Then we were corrected by the director, who said, no, you didn't have to go on to U54. Well, we wanted to anyway. But anyway, we found out that you didn't have to, but we always set high standards for ourselves. So that's what I can say sum up about this team and our fellow investigators on this team.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Reams. I always say that nobody tells a better story than you do. So thanks for bringing us along to where we are. So, Dr. Carpten, as you know, we are all, as mentioned by Dr. Reams and each one of us, we are all health disparity scientists. I mean, in our own different ways, and there are multiple of people within our institutions that do work in the area of health disparities. So what was it important to have the CaRE2 Health Equity Center? What was it important to have a center that brings all these different teams together to be able to work together?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, undoubtedly over the last, 20 to 25 years, and I can say that, when you sort of, took interest into this area of research, really trying to better understand why we consistently saw and continue to see differences in incidence and outcomes for a variety of tumor types, particularly those with high mortality rates. We saw sort of a disparity or differences when we looked at, Blacks versus other races and ethnicities, particularly when we compare Blacks against whites. And again, I've been studying in this field before it even had a name. And so now we call the field, cancer disparities or cancer health disparities research, health disparities. I think one of the things that we've learned throughout time is that it's a multifactorial issue. One thing won't fix this problem. Trying to address one area will not fix this problem. We know that there are societal, socioeconomic issues, which of course our nation is fervently fighting for even to this day. We also know that there are other issues that are probably related to biology that have to do with sort of genetic historical ancestry and how physiologies that had been developed over a millennia basically that were beneficial for individuals when they lived in a very specific environment. And when you take those individuals forcefully out of that environment and place them in another environment with a different type of lifestyle, all of a sudden those same traits become detrimental. And so there's this convergence of various sort of factors that are driving these differences. And so in order for us, and on top of that is, we also face injustices in education and training. And so as we think about, biomedical research and STEM, STEM disciplines in general, we know that there's a significant dearth or underrepresentation of minorities in these particular areas. And so in order to address all of these issues, right, it requires sort of an overarching infrastructure, or in this case, a center that sort of brings together, individuals with different backgrounds who can bring their respective expertise to bear on this problem collectively. And so, therein lies the reason to develop a center. So, as Dr. Reams mentioned, the three of us and our colleagues sort of pulled our brains together and conceived what is currently called the Florida, California CaRE2 Health Equity Center, by where CaRE2, or CARE squared, stands for Cancer Research, Education, and Engagement Center. And again, it combines cutting edge expertise and resources for the performance of translational research and cancer health disparities, but is bolstered by infrastructure to support research, training, and education, as well as innovations and community outreach and engagement and processes to help sort of understand health equities, cancer health equities in Blacks and Latinos. I think, one of the unique or the unique aspect of our center is that it's a bi-coastal center. And I think the really amazing sort of opportunity for us is that we can begin to understand not just African Americans or Blacks or Latinos as a whole. We can begin to understand subpopulations. As an example, we know that individuals who may consider themselves Hispanic Latino could actually come from more of a sort of South America, Central America native origin. For instance, individuals from Mexico, by where we have a huge catchment area here in California, that includes a large proportion of Mexican Americans versus Caribbean Latinos, which we see a large population of in Florida, right? And so although both of these groups of individuals consider themselves Hispanic Latino, you have one group that has more of a native European ancestry here in California, and another group that has more of a native and African ancestry when we think about Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Dominicans in Florida. And so we can begin to understand, right, how aspects related to lifestyle, diet, biology, genetic ancestry can influence disparities in these different subpopulations when we think about Blacks and Latinos. So we're really excited about our center, and we're glad that the NCI felt the same way, and we're willing to fund us and add us to this national network of what are called Partnerships to Advance Cancer Health Equity, or PACHI centers, the PACHI network, which resides under the NCI Center to Reduce Cancer Health Disparities. And so we're a part of this umbrella PACHI program to really try to address aspects related to cancer health equity and in our setting among Blacks and Latinos.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are definitely proud members of the NCI PACHI families. It's so good to be part of this outstanding group of investigators nationally, and of course, thanks to the NCI for funding us and for making us a member of this unique group addressing health disparities or cancer health disparities nationally. So still staying with you, Dr. Carpten, I know that we have several aims outlined for the CaRE2 Center, and to be able to achieve all the aims, there has to be some sort of organization and ways that we have our partnership very much structured. Can you describe the organizational and partnership framework for the center?
Sure, Folakemi. I think it's important to state that, one of the key aspects, and Dr. Reams mentioned this, and I think it's important to continue to reiterate, is that, one of the major sort of functions of the PACHI program is to really help drive infrastructure and additional resources and expertise and technology from the cancer centers into the minority serving institution that's part of the PACHI partnership, and that would be our partnering institution at Florida A&M University. And so, a big part of what we're trying to do is to enhance and grow research and research infrastructure at FAMU, and at the same time, continue to grow and inspire cancer disparities research at the large mainstream cancer centers, and from our partnership that's at the University of Florida, as well as at the University of Southern California. So that all being said, the overall organizational structure includes sort of the program directors of the center, and that includes the PIs and co-PIs across our partnership institutions. At Florida, Drs. Odedina and Diana Wilkie. At Florida A&M, Drs. Reams and Kinfei Retta, and at the University of Southern California, myself and my partner, Dr. Mariana Stern. And so the program directors sort of provide overall leadership and guidance, but there's additional levels of evaluation and leadership that include our program steering committee, whose role is to guide us and to work with our institutions to ensure that we have the resources that we need to be successful. And that includes the program steering committee, or PSC, includes a series of experts across the continuum of cancer health disparities research. We also have executive leadership across the institutions that include the cancer center directors, as well as the vice president of research at Florida A&M University, as well as our deans and other institutional leaders. And then we have our research projects and our core leaders, who all sort of oversee the day-to-day activities for the various research projects and the supporting cores that were described, that will be described at some point by Dr. Reams. And of course, all of this sort of infrastructure is in place to help guide sort of the center, all of the scientists, the instructors, the mentors, and the advocates, right, that are brought to bear on the center. I'd be remiss to not mention the amazing support we get from the CaRE2 Health Equity Center coordinators who work at each of the respective institutions to help provide administrative and overall support, not only to the program directors, but across the entire center. So that's the overall general structure of the CaRE2 Health Equity Center.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, John. So you're going to meet, as mentioned by Dr. Carpten, you are really going to be meeting other NPIs as well as research coordinators later on in future programs. The CaRE2 Center sort of focuses, as mentioned by Dr. Carpten, on several components for us to be able to achieve the mission of the center. One of the other segments that is coming up for the CaRE2 Cancer Research Link is the administrative core discussion, which is going to be led by Drs. Mariana Stan, Diana Wiki, as well as Dr. Ken Reda. But Dr. Reams, can you introduce us to the shared resources cores as well as some of the research projects that are being conducted by the center?
I'm going to list the research cores, and then I'll give you maybe in depth on a few of them just given the time. So we have our research education core. We call it REC, R-E-C. This is a core that actually yearly looks for, recruits, screens, and interviews undergrad students for the undergraduate training program that is solely at FAMU, Florida A&M University. Year one, we had 12 undergrad students. Year two, we have 11. In addition to those undergrads at FAMU, there are graduate students and there are ESIs. There are ESIs, early stage investigators, at all three institutions. So all three institutions look for and they bring in early stage investigators who have an interest in cancer health disparities. So that's our research education core. So that's how we try to replenish the next generation of scientists who are interested in cancer health disparities. We also have a community outreach core, COC is that acronym. And so their role is to actually be involved in all the research projects that I'll tell you about shortly, and as many cores as they can. So they are essentially leading the way to take the lessons learned, the science learned in the labs into the communities that we are doing science on, so that they can know what the questions are, they can know what the problem is. And sometimes even these community members are brought back to the labs by a pilot project called Citizen Scientists. So you bring citizens into the lab. And because we've had to go virtual because of the pandemic, what we do now is we actually have virtual meetings. And we had one this June where all three projects actually presented PowerPoints in layperson fashion, but so that they would know what our research projects were, and they get to decide which one they want to actually adopt and take the information back into the community. So that was the community outreach core. The other three are plan and evaluation, and so we plan it, they evaluate it. We say what, they say, well, so what? But anyway, so they keep us on our toes to say, okay, what impact have you really made? And they also provide surveys, and so that we can get some statistical significance on, let's say, our student training. So they'll do a baseline to figure out if these are first-time students to be trained in laboratory research or cancer research. We get their idea of what they think they're going to learn, and then at the end, we get the idea of what did they learn and compare it. And this is a longitudinal process in terms of keeping track of these students and where do they end up and what goes on for them. So now in a little bit more detail, I want to tell you about the Tissue Modeling Core. That acronym is TMC, and our biostatistical and methodological core. So with the TMC, we're really excited about this because this is one of the ways that that we know we can make impact and integration at my institution, Florida A&M, a historically black institution. So we want to be the first HBCU in Florida to actually establish a tissue repository. To study cancer, you need tools. You also need biospecimen. So there are biospecimen available for patients who have to have cancers removed. There are pathology labs that actually have tissues showing how aggressive their tumors were, and also with some non-tumors. So FAMU is poised to actually collect tissue blocks starting with the cancers that we are currently studying, pancreatic and prostate, and then moving beyond that so that we can have a repertoire of or a collection of cancers that could be available immediately for the FAMU investigators. And then also a living tissue repository in that one of our projects, as I'll tell you shortly, collaborates with a UF investigator who's a physician scientist who actually is a surgeon who removes tumors from patients, various patients, but this particular project is pancreatic, and he's perfected being able to take those tumors from patients, put them into mice, and that model is called a patient-derived xenograft. So now it serves as a way to look at the efficacy of certain drugs in being able to shrink those tumors, human tumors in mice. And but then the idea came up is like for those control animals, what can be done with those tumors is to take those tumors, those solid tumors, and actually convert them into just cells. There's a method for doing that, and then save those. So then we have, actually we'll be able to access tumors from minority patients, which is what is lacking for various cancers, and then have a living tissue repository at FAMU. And so part of this means equipment acquisition, and so we were able to submit a request for an electronic slide scanner to actually be able to visualize and capture images of, let's say, the formalin-fixed tissues, save them, and be able to remotely communicate with a pathologist, because FAMU doesn't have a medical school, so we don't have pathologists on board. But if we can send these images to pathologists, they can actually tell us how much tumor is there, if there's any tumor there. They can also score the H&E stained ones, and then this is awesome because then we can isolate tumor, non-tumor, and move it on to experiments that will help us answer some questions. So that's our tissue modeling core. And it really is being set up to help all of our projects, but particularly projects 2 and 3, which you'll hear about shortly. The other core is bioinformatics, statistics, and methodological. So bioinformatics is, you've heard the term big data. So big data is beyond being here, and we're trying to lay hands on as many of our students as we can to get them to study big data. From our perspective, we're looking at next generation sequencing data and how to go from the raw data, which is a FASTQ file, all the way down to a heat map, a volcano plot, a PCA plot. So, and I have summer students under my tutelage this summer, and I'm bringing in all kinds of help to show them how to do it. And since we, in the interest of time, sometimes the good news is you can, access Lima packages to put into your R Studio, and it will demonstrate to you, even if you just have BAM files, how to get these plots, and you can do secondary data analysis. But in this center, we're going to do some primary data analysis on some really interesting samples. There's also statisticals. So we have statisticians, biostatisticians in this core, and at UF, we have access to Hypergator. I mean, this is beyond terabytes. So there, and we each have links to each other's data management, so sample management systems. So when we grow our terabytes, we could, jump on the Hypergator and do some analysis. So those are our cores.
Before we go to the research projects, Dr. Reams, I know that Dr. Carpten has to leave for another meeting. So I wanted to see whether you have any other thoughts that you would like to share about the center before we continue with our program.
Oh, yeah, thank you. No, I think, we're really excited about the center. We're just wrapping up only our second year. And I think we've made tremendous progress and have already begun to show impact across various areas, including the research itself, in identifying potential, sort of novel molecular features of pancreatic cancer when we look at Blacks, and are moving towards studying Latinos. Also significant progress, and perhaps coming up with new and improved treatment modalities for pancreatic cancer that could definitely help all patients, including African-American patients. And then finally, really beginning to get progress and move progress into new insights into the role of mitochondria perturbations and influencing prostate cancer disparities among Blacks. We also have done a significant amount of training, including post-bac students who have actually, who are from Florida, who've come out to California to receive, sort of unique training in cancer disparities research. And we're also putting on a series of educational webinars in bioinformatics that are being broadcast and attended by a large number of students and faculty members at Florida A&M University to begin to, sort of drive interest and training in this really amazing area of research that we think could, really improve the ability of students and trainees from underrepresented minority backgrounds, particularly those that attend minority serving institutions, to really make a major impact in genomics and genome sciences. Also, on top of that, we're beginning to touch the community in very unique ways through our community outreach and engagement that include an amazing program coming out of University of Florida for the training of citizen scientists, and also a series of bi-coastal community outreach events that are being performed both in English and in Spanish, so that we can impact a broader community and catchment area. So on top of that, of course, from the scholastic standpoint, manuscripts are starting to get published from our research, and additional grants are beginning to be submitted, and some being funded. So we think that, there's tremendous opportunity to continue to drive impact in cancer health disparities, as well as we move towards health equity in Blacks and Latinos. So I'm always excited to be a part of this center, and I think the sky's the limit for us if we just continue to push hard.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Carpten. I know you have to go to another meeting, and we look forward to having you back to talk about your science. Now, that is what we want to hear. The next time you're here,
absolutely. The pleasure is all mine. pleasure is all mine. And the one group I forgot to mention in org structure was our internal advisory board, who play a really, really critical role in helping to oversee sort of internal activities, providing an additional level of evaluation, and going into this third year where we're going to think about our new projects, right, which we're really excited about. They'll play a critical role in helping us evaluate and select high impact cancer health disparities studies to be funded in our next cycle. So we're excited about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Carpten. So Dr. Reams, let's switch gear now and talk a little bit about the science. That's what we exist for, but without giving away all those science, let's, yeah.
Okay, so we have three funded projects. We were funded. We provided with funding for 2 full projects. So that's at the level of $250 a year for 3 years, and then 1 pilot project. So I'll just give you a gist of each. The first project, Project 1, just in that order, is made up of multiple PIs. And so the way things came together is we threw out a call for projects. And when we got the call back, it was like 1 PI, from FAMU, 1 PI from UF, and 1 PI from USC. And then we decided it would be more impactful if each of these 3 lead investigators actually had co-investigators from each of the other 2 institutions. So for Project 1, that lead person was Dr. Pinchas Cohen, known as Hasi. And so he was a lead, and his idea was to look at disparities in mitochondrial peptidomics and transcriptomics in prostate cancer. So he was interested in prostate cancer. He had a history of looking at mitochondrial peptides. So we looked around each of the universities, and actually I do prostate cancer. I am interested in transcriptomics. He was mostly going to do peptidomics, so I added a third aim, which is to look at the mitochondrial transcript. So for the most part, this project wants to know, how does mom's mitochondrial DNA contribute to prostate cancer? So is it differences in gene expression? Is it differences in mutations in mitochondrial transcripts? And the other investigators, in order to do this, you need samples. So Dr. Lee Ming Su is the head of urology at University of Florida, and has consented patients, and is getting serum, is getting plasma. Dr. Andrew Brewitt, also a urologist at USC, is also opening up recruitment so that he can increase these numbers. So we need 500 samples from 500 different patients for serum and plasma in order to be able to see any differences in peptidomics. The transcriptomics was my idea for the project, which is to, instead of just looking at RNA-seq of prostate cancers, let's look at it at the mitochondrial level. So we are poised to see what our data looks like. COVID, our run got done, and then COVID came, so we haven't been able to touch anything and analyze those data. But this is really exciting science, and we can't wait. And it's actually pioneering, because no one has looked at mitochondrial transcriptomics before. The second project is entitled Enhancing Efficacy of Gemcinnabine Nanoparticles in Pancreatic PDX Models. So simply, layman's term, Dr. Edward Ajari is a pharmaceutical scientist, and pharmaceutical scientists like modifying drugs. and they like making nanoparticles. And so gemcinnabine is an old drug that has been used and actually still being used for pancreatic cancer. But the problem is these pancreatic tumors have such a, the tumors are embedded and surrounded by a core. So it's not, the drug is not as effective. So he's remodeling the drug and also trying to make it into a nanoparticle so that it can be more effective. But prior to, of course, we're not going to humans, but so first step is he modifies the drug. He passes it to his colleague, Bo Han, at USC, who does tissue modeling. She also has organoid cells. So she tests out gemcinnabine on pancreatic organoid cell lines. So these are three-dimensional. And she compares it to standard of care drugs to see how effective it is. And so this gives him an idea of how his modifications have been. So if his modifications are good, then it's a go. Then they test it out in the PDX animal model, because like this PDX animal model is a way to, instead of giving a test drug on a human, you give it to a animal that is bearing a human's tumor to see if it shrinks. And if it does, how long, once that drug clears the system, how long does that tumor stay in a shrunk mode, which means like that for us, that'll be like it's in remission, right? And then how long will it take for it to come back? So these are really exciting projects because they really are at the forefront of trying to figure out how to, in this case, recycle a drug that has great potential, but how do you get it to bore through the layers to get to the actual drug? So that's, and Dr. Jose Trevino is the physician scientist at University of Florida, who has his own research lab and who is the surgeon who actually performs these pancreatic cancers. So they truly are a dynamic trio. And one thing I wanted to mention is both Dr. Jose Trevino and Dr. Edward Ajori were actually a research partner pair on our P20 grant, and had so they worked. I mean, it's like putting two little boys in a sandbox, and you go back. They built a bridge, they built a castle, so they worked very well together. And it was interesting that they didn't intentionally come into to apply for this program, but they ended up as when one project did something differently. We had an opening, and we said, "Congratulations, you're first at last. We got 6 days to find an R1 grant." So they took the challenge, and it's been really great ever since. So we have Jose, Edward, and Bohan. That was project 2. Pilot project. So all of these projects are for 3 years. The pilot project is driven by Dr. Thomas Schmidgen. Dr. Schmidgen is also a pharmaceutics scientist at the University of Florida, and he has an administrative title. So he's very busy, but loves science. So wrote the project, and with him are 2 investigators. Dr. Wendy Szechuan is a PhD scientist and actually an R1 scientist who actually looks at SNPs and how these single nucleotide polymorphism variants can alter cancers. And his colleague from Florida A&M University is Dr. Insut Lee. Dr. Insut Lee is also an R1 scientist, and her goal is to, or her role is to perform epigenetics once a gene list is found, so that she can determine the role that epigenetics plays on his project. So the project is, what are the contributions of racial disparity toward the early development of pancreatic cancer? So this is so early that samples are actually gotten from people who donate their pancreas for research. So they didn't die of pancreatic cancer. So the cells are ANCINAR, ANCINAR. They're just like, they're healthy pancreatic cancers. So Dr. Schmidgen wants to watch them go from healthy to early stage pancreatic cancer. And so he's done that, and he actually has a compound that actually seems to reverse it. So stay tuned, because there's a lot coming from this pilot project. So those are our 3 projects, and like I say, they have been end of August. They would have been, in operation 2 years, and they have a full year left. And so the pilot project is going to compete for a full project when we go when we vet the next set of projects for the last 2 years of our first term U54 samples.
Okay. Yes, this is really hugely interesting, and thank you, Dr. Reams, for providing such a very comprehensive overview of all the cores that are working together. We have several cores. We have the cores that are really supporting the projects and making sure that the projects are getting really great traction in moving forward, including our community outreach and engagement core, of course, that ensures that there's bi-directional relationship between us and you, the community, and we are able to disseminate the research as well as invite you to advise us on the research that we are doing. So there's quite a lot going on. And later on in the segments of the CaRE2 Cancer Research Link, you are going to be meeting all our core leaders and also meeting all our investigators as well, and they're going to provide much more information for you. So Dr. Reams, we are now in the end of the second year of the center. I mean, it's unbelievable. On one sense, it's as if we've been doing this for a long time. In another sense, 2 years has already passed, and within just those 2 years, I believe that our center has really made an impact in the Black and the Latinx community. Are there some examples that you can provide in the areas of impact that we have at least made within our community?
Yes. So one of the biggest impact, I think, was our bi-coastal, bilingual community outreach summit. That happened in early August of our first year. So it was our very first. So it was FAMU, UF. Well, actually, because UF was in Florida, they came, and so that we were all here at the Florida A&M University campus. So we piped into University of Southern California, and there were presentations. The plenary speaker was Real Men Die from Prostate Cancer, just to urge men to not wait. And then there were dialogues. It was very refreshing. And then there were questions, and it was amazing to hear these citizen scientists get up and say, so what would be the commonalities and differences between Hispanics and Blacks of this cancer? And, we can't tell them yet because the research, the experiments are still going, but the fact that they had these questions, and then they also, the questions made us go into conversations about, I may identify as Black, but if I do my ancestry informative markers, I really may be, 45% European, but I know that wouldn't be true. But anyway, but anyway, so they had lots of questions. The other impact is the next generation that we're training. We have phenomenal students. Oh my goodness. Phenomenal students trained at all 3 institutions. The postbacks, we had postbacks participating in live liver transplants. We have them following Dr. Trevino into the surgery room, coming back with him in the lab. We have students at FAMU who are modeling and making medicinal compounds that will hopefully be the next compound to actually have a true impact on one of the cancers, breast, or whatever they are making it for. And then these students go on, and so we don't tell them anything. We treat them like they're little graduate students. So they come up with a hypothesis-driven original research. They do that work, and then they apply for They send out applications to do abstracts. They've gotten invited to give their posters at the AACR Health Disparities meeting, at the ABRCMS meeting, which is the largest undergraduate minority meeting. So they're just, as they say, the song says, these kids are on fire. They're ready. They are ready.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's very exciting how the center is really making an impact. Not only are we pushing scientific discoveries forward in the area of the subpopulations of Blacks and Latinos, but as you just said, we are creating the next generation of outstanding biomedical scientists. I mean, I think having that pipeline, knowing that we are going to continue to work until we actually are able to conquer cancer and especially eliminate disparities within our community, and I think that is really great. Another thing for my level that I'm really excited about is just the idea of having cancer advocates and cancer survivors who are really part of our team. They're really part of our team within the center, and the ability to have that bi-directional relationship between the scientific community and also the public and the communities, the Black and Latinx communities, becomes very important, because we are equal partners in this. There's nothing that we can do as scientists and get done if we are not really partnering with the community or partnering with cancer survivors or advocates or the public on. So which brings me to the CaRE2 Cancer Research Link YouTube channel, which is what we have right now. And it's very exciting for us as a center to be able to have a platform to bring the scientific discoveries that we have straight to the community, straight to the public, because not everybody's reading from our scientific journals, and not everybody's sort of taking a look at where we are publishing at or the conferences that we are going to. So this is we really have a lot of creative and innovative things that are going on within the center. So we are now wrapping up. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our viewers, Dr. Reams?
Yes, I just want to acknowledge our NCI program directors and all of their support and their understanding, especially during this COVID pandemic. And they've reached out to us on many occasions. They have given us lengthier deadlines to get back to them. They were totally in favor of us moving to virtual, and they were even going to let us off the hook, but we said we can get it done. We got it done. They were so impressed. So that's very, very much. So we thank them for their time, their energy, especially their resources. And I just want to remind all the viewers about our AACR Health Disparities meetings, which is going to be held in Miami, Florida, the Hilton Miami, in October. And I want everybody who is doing cancer health disparities research, or who even wants to do it, to apply and to attend the meeting. At this point, we're not sure if it's virtual or not, but it is also the 20th year of the anniversary of the Minorities in Cancer Research. So this is where you come to display your ideas, to find collaborators, and to meet the people who are continuously generating the data for the next generation to carry on. So please come.
Awesome. The AACR Science of Cancer Health Disparities is definitely the conference for our CaRE2 Center. So it will be nice. We are going to be there. We are always there every year, and that's where we share the results of all our scientific discoveries at that meeting. So I don't have anything else to add. Dr. Reams, that was a great summary. Thanks for joining the CaRE2 Cancer Research Link today. It has been a great pleasure introducing our center to you. We definitely would love to hear from you. So please connect with us through our website, social media, and email, and together we can conquer cancer in our communities.